guys, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in on another episode. Today I'm going to talk to you about just a random failure part that happened on my car, and should it happen to you or your protege, what you can do about it. This works for both manual and automatic versions. My starter solenoid failed. I knew it wasn't the starter right away because the starter on my car is relatively new. When I first bought the car, I changed it because it was dragging a little bit. I changed the battery first, and then I changed the starter later, because I would start the car and I would just get this, like the car would be very sluggish, and it was like after a battery change. So I knew, like, once the starter finally kicked after I was having these symptoms, I noticed that I would get a click, a clack, a click, a clack, but nothing else would happen. And then every now and then the car would start. And when it starts, the starter motor was actually, was fast. It wasn't dragging. It was, it was going. So I said, I know I have an issue with the solenoid. It's going bad. And of course, when I changed the starter on this car, I used an aftermarket version. I believe it's called TYC or something like that. Some aftermarket brand that I got from Rock Auto. I am aware that some of the parts from Rock Auto, they're not 100% great quality. Don't expect them to last forever. The starter gave me, I would say, a good 5-6 years worth of service. Maybe about 4.5 years, yeah. About 4.5 years of service, trouble-free service. And I was actually able to fix it with OEM Mazda parts. Only thing is, when you do fix this, you do have to pull the starter off the donor car and pull your starter to access the starter solenoid. Or if you don't want to do any of that, you got to remove the intake manifold, which I don't expect anyone else to, I don't expect you to want to do that. Just pulling the starter is just, I think, 3 bolts and it comes out. You're going to disconnect the battery, disconnect all the wiring to the starter, pull it out. And once you get it out, you can service the solenoid on top. I mean, the symptoms started, I want to say the symptoms started about a week out, maybe a week and a half out. I would get off work, I'd go to the car, and I'd hit the starter button, and sometimes nothing would happen. I wouldn't even get a click or a clack. And then I'd get a click, and then I'd get a start. And I noticed that the starter, whenever it engaged, it would sound healthy. It's just that there was this click. So I checked the battery. Battery was good. And I said, I know I got a starter solenoid issue. I knew right away. So I'm going to show you how to fix that. It's relatively simple. If the car is cool, not at operating temperature, you can get this done in 30 minutes. It's pretty simple. It just happened at such a critical time. I was switching jobs. I left the BMW dealer, no longer working at a BMW dealer. I went to an independent shop. They paid way more money, and I was like, you know what, I'm out. A lot more hours, a lot more money, and this literally happened over the weekend. And I was at first I didn't have a problem with it because, I think maybe the last 2 days when I was working at the dealer, the car, it gave me this start issue. I said no problem because there's an incline and a very large parking lot. I just push the thing, put it in first gear, pop the clutch, and it starts. No big deal. Now this won't work if you drive it automatic. If you start having starter issues, you're gonna have to, you can't push your car and start it, of course, if you got an automatic. But anyway, it started happening, and then like I said, I was okay with it. I just push it and start it. But where I would be working, the next place, they have a very small parking lot, and there's literally nowhere to push start my car in that parking lot. It's absolutely impossible. Matter of fact, the parking lot is kind of so small that I have to reserve parking. We have to reserve parking for customers. So I park my car on the side of the street in front of a pole, on a large enough piece of the city property, and I guess they don't mind. But yeah, I said there's no way that I'm going to be able to do that, so I had to fix it. And I fixed it using used parts from a salvage yard Protege. So that's kind of what this video is going to cover. I hope I don't jinx anybody. I hope you don't start having starter issues, but just in case you do have starter issues where you may start the car and it sounds healthy, but you just hear this click clack and you know your battery's good, it's more than likely not the starter and just the solenoid. So you probably can get this fixed. You can service this item and save some money. So for this repair, I didn't have a lift, but in this case, a lift is not 100% necessary. As you can see, I got the car drove up on some ramps. Okay, so that's the first thing you'll need to do if you don't have a lift. Second thing, of course, is you're going to be disconnecting the battery. Make sure the negative terminal, as you can see on my car, negative terminal wants to jump back and forth. Just make sure it's secured out of the way. After you remove the battery in the battery box, there are 2 bolts here. I do believe they're 12 or 13 millimeter. These 2 bolts are the top 2 bolts that hold the starter. You're going to be removing those 2 bolts, and underneath you can see this is the starter. From the bottom there's 1 12 or 13 millimeter bolt there, and then you're going to be removing the power supply and ground cables from the starter. This is the starter after I got it out of the car. Of course, you can see the TYC brand, as I mentioned earlier. At the time, it was a brand new starter. And it features the serviceable solenoid, as you can see there. This is the U solenoid that I got out of the salvage yard. You can see how that actually works. To get the solenoid loose, I used an impact screwdriver. You can pick these up from Snap-on. Okay, it's not 100% necessary that you use these, but it just makes it a whole lot easier. This comes as a kit, and inside the kit they have varying sizes of screwdrivers, both flathead and Phillips. So how it works, you just basically, as you can see, you just smack the screwdriver, the impact screwdriver, and what it does, it puts pressure on the screw to open the screws, at the same time turning it during an impact. So it's kind of a relatively simple idea. Once you get the solenoid out, I want to show you something here. This is kind of interesting how a starter actually works. So the solenoid will actually push on this lever, and the lever in return will actually cycle the gear back and forth, or in this case up and down. And when that gear engages the starter, it actually starts. Make sure that when you're putting in the solenoid, that the solenoid actually mounts behind the 2 fingers there, so that it can grip and push and pull on that gear set. During reassembly is the same as opposite. You're just gonna basically screw these in, and you can also use the impact screwdriver to tighten down these screws if necessary. So the last thing you'd want to do before reinstallation is to install the ground cable, tighten the 13 millimeter nut, and that completes the installation of the solenoid. And of course, once you get it inside the car, you can continue with a start test of 10 cycles. If it's okay, the job is complete. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.